let me give you a little history of where we're at and where we came from. I might be a little different than a lot of you in here. We are a heavy retail shop, so a single store. Our big focus is we're a high volume, in and out, quick and easy, educate our patients type store. Have been for 35 years. So some of you might be sitting through this going, well, this doesn't pertain to me. Hopefully there's some ideas I can throw at you, and maybe hopefully there's some ideas you can throw back at me. But we'll just kind of take it from there and take it one step at a time. So our store, like I said, high volume combo shop, 36 years in business. My dad was a pharmacist in charge when they opened in 1981, and my wife and I actually purchased the store in July of 2015. So at that time in 2015, we were kind of in a place of complacency. As you would imagine, after 36 years, I think that's probably bound to set in at some point. So we weren't seeing any growth. If anything, we were shrinking on a minimal basis, probably 1% to 2% annually. We didn't really like that. And we weren't really doing anything special as far as adherence measures or anything. We were the lick and stick pharmacy. That was all you're going to get. So when we took over, we decided, hey, we've got to go do some initiative to do something new. Probably a lot of you have kind of looked at this since you're also owners of SynMeds, but a big one was our long-term care business. So we looked at that as a real opportunity for us. We were servicing about 250 beds at the time, and we were fairly successful had some really good homes we were servicing, but we saw that as maybe some potential of somebody we could go after. One big part of living in Dodge City, Kansas, it's a town of 26,000 in southwest Kansas. Lack of workforce candidates was a big deal for us too. So that was a big decision for us to go get a SynMed, because it was almost like adding another employee without having to go actually find a quality employee, which is pretty difficult. So I'm going to give you kind of just a rundown of what we did, exactly how, like the steps we took, and then I'll give you some marketing ideas and things that have worked for us during that process. But the first thing we did after making the decision to step into a SynMed was we said, okay, let's prioritize our targets. We looked at long-term care opportunities, we looked at home health organization opportunities, hospice opportunities, and then retail to us was kind of an afterthought. How are we going to deliver this to our retail patients? When we installed the SynMed, our intention was to go get the LTC business and use it to improve our efficiencies there. So then what we did is we actually made an itinerary, and we went out and sat down with every single long-term care organization or any organization or hospice or home health. We sat down with them and said, hey, how can we help? So a few tips for if you're going to do that, and I'd recommend if you're not already doing that, which a lot of you are, we found that you need to take samples. We actually sat down at our first long-term care home and said, hey, we have multi-dose now, we think you'd love it. And they said, well, show it to me. And I said, well, I'll have to go to the car and get it. I didn't think you'd be interested. I didn't even bring it in. So take samples. We have a couple facilities that have moved over to it. They love it. The homes that have refused to move so far, it's just because of complacency on their end. I think when they move, they'll like that as well. So we always focused on flexibility and going in and saying, hey, if you want single dose, we can do single dose. If you want multi-dose, we'll do multi-dose. If you want your labels to look a certain way, we can do it. And SynMed has been great working with us to do that. I don't know, Jean talked about it a little bit, but we are very successfully utilizing SynMed to fill single dose. I don't know if everybody's in here is doing that. I talked to a user the other day that wasn't really fully aware that that could be done. It's cut our fill time in half on that side. The multi-dose is way better as far as efficiency goes, but it does help on the efficiency side on the single dose as well. Keeping communication open. We're in a small community, so I'm constantly checking in on LTC facilities, and then when at the very end, after we sat down with everybody, we sat down and we assessed each organization. And we asked essentially 4 questions. Can we have a constructive relationship with this organization or this facility? And in some cases, the answer was no. We have one facility that has a DON, and she is absolutely awful. And we just determined we weren't going to go in there. We cut our losses. The next one was, are they committed to quality like we are? And then we always made sure that if there was a promise we were going to make, that we could deliver on it. We had one facility come to us and said, we want you to service all 100% of our facility, but we want you to be 24-hour. We want you to come in and do our consulting. We want this, that, supplies, and all that. And I loved the idea, but again, picture yourself in Dodge City, Kansas, where it's hard to hire pharmacists, it's hard to hire good help. We weren't in a position where we could promise that to somebody. So we had to tell them no, and I don't regret it. And someday we might go back to them. And then my wife and I, my wife's the pharmacist in charge, and we have a couple other pharmacists, but we also consider as a Med A, if we service Med A beds, we don't want to be up 4 or 5 nights a week. We have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. We're up enough during the night. We don't want to have to deal with a nursing home calling 5, 6, 7 nights a week too. And it's her or I that are going to make those phone calls. So we weren't in that position. The next question was, is it worth your time? Like I just talked about, what's the hassle going to be on some of these? And then so we made a ranking of where we want to go, who we want to service. And what surprised us was our ranking, the top of our ranking ended up being home health, hospice, and some assisted living facilities, because they're easy for us to access, they're easy for us to serve, they're not the needy patients, the needy facilities. And so mainly our focus moving forward was going to be on home health, because we recognized that that is where the most growth is going to be. We figure the nursing homes are already full. They can't get any fuller because they're full, but the population's still aging. And the things that keep people in the things that put people in a nursing home are probably number one is not being able to manage their meds. So we're banking on the fact that there's a good possibility that more people are going to want to stay at home longer. And so that's where we're thinking, we're wanting to hook that fish now, so we're there and ready when it really hits. So our strategy now is we're still continuing to be progressive with our long-term care expansion, but the heavy focus is the home health, the business. Another thing I want to mention, and if you're a retail shop, you might understand this. If not, it's probably a moot point. But we use the implementation and installation of SynMed to really springboard our services as a whole. We didn't reinvent the wheel on how we treat our patients. They still get the same great treatment they've always gotten when they come in. We're quick and they're more educated when they walk out of our door. But there are new services that we used SynMed and our implementation of a multi-dose packaging program to help springboard. And that includes a full synchronization program. We now, between SynMed, between our adherence packaging and SynMed, we're now just over 12 months since we've started this program, we're now serving over 650 patients on a synchronization or a multi-dose program. So we use this to say, and we have a form that when a new patient comes in, we hit them up right away and we say, okay, are you interested in getting your meds all together? Because we're going to pretty much make you get your meds all together. We're going to synchronize you. And when we do that, we say, well, if you're interested in that, is a multi-dose option something you need? So that's something all of our new patients get asked when they come in, no exception. So with that, when we do multi-dose packaging, we're making phone calls about a week before meds are due. And that's a very, very valuable tool for us, because now, and typically it's a pharmacist that's calling at this point, now we get to dictate how we serve that patient. So in the fall we're asking, do you need a flu vaccine? Have you had a flu vaccine? Do you want to come in and get it? Can we send somebody out to you? We're going to have a clinic here at this time. Show up and we'll give it to you, no extra charge. Also completing and doing MTM cases. I don't like doing those. They're not. But it's one of those things, especially on the retail side, with DIRs and all the remuneration and all that, it's something we're having on the retail side. We have to do them. We don't really have an option, even though we're not getting paid well for them. And then Part D reviews. It's a big part of our practice. We're doing, we did almost 1,000 Part D reviews last year. We're kind of revamping how we do that this year, but again, it's one of those things we ask about when we make that monthly phone call. Say, hey, are you signed up for a Part D review? Or this year we'll just look at it and say, hey, we've looked at it, you don't need a Part D review. So how we implemented this after the actual installation of SynMed. First of all, we prepared and educated our staff. I appointed one pharmacist to be the head of our long-term care and home health system. And after we bought the store, she wasn't real fired up about the transition, to be honest with you, because she knew we were going to get after her to be a little more progressive. We brought the SynMed in and she was so impressed. I showed her a video the day I bought it. And from that day forward, she had a fire lit under her. And she's been a banshee, running around doing all kinds of stuff for us, making calls on long-term care, making the calls out to the patients. So it really fired her up. So we were glad to get her back on board with what we're wanting to do. And then educating the technicians and clerks, especially on when to recognize somebody needs something. So if you have front-end staff, you probably know this is the hardest thing to do. First, you got to educate them on what you can provide. So they have to know that the multi-dose option is available. And that's difficult in itself, but then they have to actually recognize when somebody might need it and then go out and recommend it to them and try to get them on board. And then communication. So in our business, we talk about this and we talk about how do we let people know that these services are available. So we'll go into some marketing we've done. We talked about the seminars we sat down with. And then how we communicate what we can do to our patients. So our promotional strategy included with physicians. We just want to spread the word. We're in a small town. We talk to our physicians. Some of them are my neighbors. So it's pretty easy for us just to reach out and say, hey, we can help you here. If you have a patient in mind, send them our way. But we also set up a seminar where we went out, and Claire was out there with us when we did this. And they brought in an advisor, and we sat down and showed them what we could do and told them what kind of applications they could be used in. And now all of a sudden we have a lot of physicians in town who are almost an extension of our staff saying, hey, we can go, you can go over to Gibson's and you can get a multi-dose pack because I know you're having trouble taking these meds. So they're kind of an extension of us now too. So we included some of our staff in those luncheon and the nursing staff as well. We send out monthly newsletters. We always mention that we're happy to take the pain in the reader cases to help them out. That's a big deal to them. And then we've done a pretty good job about making direct calls. So it's been pretty structured as far as how we've done that in 2016-17. That's based upon Medicare standards with Humana's DIRs and Caremark's DIRs. Those are our focused patients right now because those are the ones we want on a sync program at least, if not on a multi-dose program. So that way our adherence rates go higher, our reimbursements stay the same. They're not going to get better, but they're at least going to stay the same, and that helps us out. And then ongoing relationships, I talked about small town, even in cities, I think it's important that you're reaching out to your physicians on occasion to say, hey, this is something we can do to help you out. Then we have direct marketing to our patients. We use the whole gamut. We go out and market in any way, shape, or form we can. We still use traditional TV and radio, although we're starting to use a little bit less. We also use social media. I'll show you a couple of really cool examples of using SynMed's marketing and then using some of our own. We've got some really good outcomes on a couple of those. In-store promotion, I'll talk about that. I think you got to be a little careful, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then staff preparation, again, I don't think that's the staff, the clerks being able to voice what you're able to do for somebody, that's extremely important as well. And then word of mouth. It's the old saying, I always want what my neighbor has. And so a lot of what we see walking in, a lot of people we see walking in and asking for our multi-dose solutions are somebody who saw their neighbor has it or their friend has it. We're seeing a lot of that now too. So I'm not a marketing expert. I don't have a marketing degree. I'm a pharmacist, but these are some tips on what I've seen to be pretty effective for what we're doing. We always, first and foremost, we solve a problem. We like to call our multi-dose automated med boxes because that hits if you call it multi-dose packaging, nobody knows what in the heck that means. But if you say, we've got this, we can fill med boxes for you and they can come out and they're fully automated and they come out fully labeled, ready to go, easy for you to read, then that strikes a nerve. They're like, oh, so you're going to replace my med box. Yeah, that's exactly what I just told you. So, to be blunt, And then reduce confusion. So we actually run into quite a few cases where people come in and there's a misconception that they're going to get bubble packaging, so they're in a nursing home now. And so we actually run into that quite a bit. So we get some resistance to wanting to be in those because they just picture, I'm going to have this when I go to a nursing home. So they don't, when we show it to them, they say, no, that's not something I want. We use SynMed's materials a lot. We also take some of our own, and then we like to make sure that we're branding it. So we're in a town of 26,000, like I said, so when we do something, we want to make sure our brand is on it, and we want to make sure that we use our people, and you'll see a couple examples of that here in a minute. We also like to target appropriate audience. We've found that caregivers are, it's more efficient for us to go after the caregivers for a lot of times than it is to actually go out to the patient, because again of that perception that, hey, this is a nursing home thing, I don't need this. In a lot of cases they do need it, and it takes a daughter, a son, a grandson, a nephew, or a niece to come in and say, hey, Mom, Dad, this is something you need.
Having trouble managing your prescription medications? Gibson Pharmacy's multi-dose packaging can help. No more doubling up or forgetting your doses. All medications due at the same time are in a single, convenient bubble. Our packaging is clearly marked to tell you when doses are due and which medications to take. Forget filling med boxes. We'll do the work for you. Stop in or give us a call today to find out more. Gibson's Pharmacy, helping improve your health for over 35 years.
So we put that together, again, just abiding by the rules, solve a problem, put your people in it, and it's really, outside of that, it's pretty much that simple. I've got another one here. I'm going to go back one. This is the same message, but this is important for us because we're in a town of 71% Hispanic. So we had one of our clerks, her name's Gabby. She was nice enough to deliver the same message, but in Spanish. So we advertised this on Telemundo and Univision, I believe, and this is very effective for us as well. Again, still our people, still our brand. I can't tell you what she's saying, but I know what she's saying. But that's, this is the kind of stuff we usually do and put on.
So following that, did you have a customer walking into the pharmacy and asking for the service?
Yes. I'll get into this in a minute, but we didn't actively market to a home health population probably until October of last year. And the reason why is we wanted to take baby steps. Again, I'm not wanting to promise something to somebody I can't deliver. So we got it installed. We gave our tech about 3 months to get up to speed on servicing the population we already had. That was number one. Then she fell, broke her ankle, and tore her ACL. So it put us in a position last July to where we really couldn't expand anything. We really didn't have an option. So we're really just now getting into the active marketing. We had a lot of the stuff ready to go and then just couldn't release it. Then we do use radio. I won't even bother you with playing this because it's really the same message. But again, my wife did the same recording we play it on the radio. Again, our message, our people, our brand. And so then we'll move on to social media. So this is our first social media post. We posted this on January 3rd. And I spent $100. I spent $100 over 14 days on this ad. I'm in a town of 26,000, like I said, and we hit 16,000 people with this $100 ad. So my point here is social media is a monster, first of all. Second of all, we're still using the same type of marketing. We're solving a problem up top. This one, the only thing I don't like about this, and I love SynMed's marketing materials, and what I should have done is just slapped. I'd like to see our logo or something on the actual pictures, but that would be the only issue I have with this at all. So $100 hit 16,000 people, 11,000 were paid, 218 likes, 47 shares, and then I had 5 confirmed new patients who called me directly and told me they saw this online. That's 5 confirmed patients just from this alone. And again, we're not picking up a 35-year-old that's taking lisinopril and that's it. These are people with metabolic syndrome coming in and they're taking 15, 25, 30 meds. I mean, crazy amounts of meds sometimes. One thing I like to do on these, It doesn't show how many comments are on here, but I believe there were 65 or 70 comments under this. So when that happens and somebody expresses interest underneath, I always make sure I reach out and say, hey, I saw you had some interest on our Facebook page. If there's something we can do to help, reach out to me anytime. It's low pressure, but it's something I like to put something out there, and I'll even put my name on it. I'm the owner and pharmacist. If you need something, call me and ask for me personally. So I like to do that too. So then we ran a second ad on January 25th. Pretty much the same thing. We did put it's not as pretty, but we do have our label on this one. We didn't get quite, just a little note, not pertaining to SynMed necessarily, but I did $100 over 30 days. If I went back and did it again, I would say I'd start doing $100 over 7 or 10. It seems like you get a little more bang for your buck. We didn't quite have the reach on this one, but still 10,000 reaches on a second ad. Pretty happy with that. So again, just a message on power of social media. I didn't spend $1 on this one. That's my 3-year-old on the right, Levi, and that's Landon, my wife. We did we're in the process of building a new facility. So this was our groundbreaking ceremony. Without any paid advertising, we hit just over 3,700 people hit on that one. Again, some of you in a city might say, oh, that's nothing. To me, that's kind of a big deal. So one thing I probably want to touch base on here or touch on a little bit is self-promotion. We've done very little, if any, promotion inside the store. And the reason why, and we're gearing up to do it, again, I don't like to promise something I can't deliver. I'm terrified of when I put these things on my counter, what's going to happen. Because I'm going to have half my population asking for it. And I'm not sure I can deliver on that yet. So if you're in a retail setting, it's a great idea if you're wanting to hit it. I'm just a little bit terrified of, I don't want to screw the whole thing up. Very soon we're going to roll them out. I'm kind of excited to see what happens. We do have posters, bag stuffers already prepared. Staff preparation, listen and react, and then counter samples. That's about the only thing we haven't done yet. When they go out, it's gonna be a wild ride, I have a feeling. So here are our 12-month results. We had the SynMed installed in February of 2016. This data comes directly from our pharmacy software system, and it's a little glitchy sometimes. I think you'll notice January's not on here because I didn't get any data at all. So this has pretty much exceeded my expectations for what we're doing. This is home health. This right here is home health SynMed dispensing only. So we've grown from 0, basically at baseline, all the way up to, in March of this year, we're already over 150 patients over the 12 months. That's not expansion total of our expanded services, that's just home health alone. We're now topping over 1,300 prescriptions a month, just on those alone. You can see where my tech injury happened, we plateaued a little bit. And then that's when we started kicking in some active in October, November last year, and you can see a pretty big jump from one month to the next as well. I'm not really keen on showing everybody my total refills, so I left the gauge on the left off. But you can see you can see 2014 here. We really dipped down, and where we were really struggling was with Medicare Part D with preferred networks, taking our business somewhere else. We really don't make people mad. They don't leave us for being angry. Every once in a while we will, just somebody disgruntled, that happens. But most of it was we're losing our chronic patients because the chains have realized that's where the money's at, and that's where the business is at. So they're using every resource they have to get these refills to go out my door. So we saw it from about 2013, 2014 on, we saw at very best a plateau and maybe a little bit of a decline. You can see here in January and February of 15, we really dropped down here to a pretty unhealthy level. What I'm excited about is, starting in March of last year when we installed SynMed, you can see a pretty good upward trend on that, and that's not 100% a direct result of SynMed, but it's a direct result of all of the things that we've put in place since SynMed was put in place. I don't think the growth curve here almost directly corresponds to the growth curve that we have here. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think this is a big deal to us. What's coming out of SynMed is a big deal to us. So we've been very happy with what we've gotten out of it. We're a high volume store. Growing at 10% is a really, really, really big deal for us. So we've been really happy with this.